And welcome back. Our first conversation this morning is a discussion on the travel landscape and how the trends are redefining leisure travel. We have been joined virtually by Curtis Zimmerman. He's the founder of the Zimmerman Agency. Good morning, Curtis.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I am good, my brother. Yourself?
Good. Not as good as I was Friday when I was in Belize.
We were hoping that you would still be here.
I was tempted to stay.
I trust that you enjoyed your brief visit to Belize nonetheless.
I always do. Yes, I always do.
Let's talk about tourism and the ever-changing trends in leisure travel. I know that your agency looks at the landscape on a whole and look at some of the trends that are affecting or impacting or influencing, if that's the case, the tourism sector. Let's start there.
All right. Well, I mean, you can imagine that COVID disrupted the travel landscape to the point that it was very difficult as we started to recover to really measure the full impact because people had this pent-up demand to travel. Mm-hmm. Now we're at a point in 2024 where people are still excited about traveling again, but the trends are starting to create what we call a new normal. Mm-hmm. And that new normal happens to be playing very well for Belize.
Yeah. When we're talking about the technology that comes with this new redefined way of looking at traveling, I know that you were talking a little bit about this virtual reality and so forth, and being able to look at the diving experience from a virtual space. We now have things like virtual museum tours. We have things like photogrammetry that are bringing these different landscapes to life, so we no longer have to physically go there. Mm-hmm. How is it that helps us, though, to bring up the tourism economy in different countries if we don't have to go there to experience this new way of travel?
Well, that's a great question. The reality is that technology is impacting every part of travel. It's the way people plan for travel. They're using their mobile devices more than they ever have. They're using AI to plan travel. Mm-hmm. And we're using tools like virtual reality to entice them to the experience. It's almost the promise of the new experience is what we're really hoping for. Okay. You know, how we present that. So it's, yes, technology is a big part of it, but using things like virtual reality, augmented reality, and AI is another way to create a new promise of what's to come and what that experience will be like.
Mm-hmm. How do these trends influence the average traveler, though?
Well, you know, the average traveler is traveling a lot. Mm-hmm. So it's, you know, people had this pent-up demand for travel, and this appetite for travel was enormous. That's what people really were hoping for, was to have an opportunity when they came to travel where they could do more and have more experiences. So what we're seeing is the number one trend, the number one reason people travel is for rest and relaxation. Mm-hmm. So yes, you can go to Belize for rest and relaxation, but if you really see where that perfect storm is for Belize, it's people that are looking for more adventure. It's people that are looking for diversity in their experience, the type of experience they can have. And things like beach vacations are still very important, but you know, we just happen to be at a point where if you look at what Belize has to offer, it's clearly gives us an advantage and something very special a very special story to tell. So when you ask a question like, why would we use virtual reality? We're using virtual reality to show them what the reef will be like. It doesn't displace the actual experience itself. It entices them to want to have more of it. Mm-hmm. And that's the average traveler. And what we're also discovering is the more discretionary income people have, the more likely they are to want to travel across borders. So that's another trend that's working in their favor.
Because I was just about to say that there's nothing quite like the physical experience of being somewhere, right? So even if we're in a state of augmented reality or what have you, the fact that we can be there in person, like diving the reef or what have you, there's nothing like it despite the fact that you may have on a VR,
Yeah.
a VR glasses or what have you, it doesn't compare.
Well, it's interesting. Belize is what we would call today a bucket list trip,
Yeah.
right? This is what people put on their bucket list. This is the type of experience I want to have. So in order to have a competitive advantage, we're using things like VR, and we're using these, and even our own website, to make sure that people can have an understanding, or we can whet their appetite with what the experience will be like. Nothing is really like the experience. Nothing replaces the experience.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
So you're very right.
Let's talk about the technology behind it and how you came up, excuse me, with this idea in the first place.
Well, I think the good news is we've been encouraged by the Belize Tourism Board to stay on the cutting edge. I think, the good news is that leadership really wants to make sure that they're embracing things that are new and embracing things that give us an advantage. So using virtual reality was something we used in our television commercials. We started using drones and started trying to use whatever we could to emulate what the experience would be like, to create as much of an invitation as we possibly could. Virtual reality was that next step. Now remember, this is only the first part of what we're going to do with virtual reality. We're using the reef to give them, this is our first pass at what virtual reality can do for us. And it's still very early. People got a glimpse of it on Friday, or Thursday, which was wonderful, but that's just a glimpse of what's yet to come. So we'll be giving people a better understanding of what the overall experience will be like. The reef is just something very special.
Let's step back a bit, Curtis, and talk about your involvement in promoting and marketing Belize's tourism product and working closely with the Belizean stakeholders in this endeavor.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Last week was the Boom meeting, and the Boom meeting was it's a great opportunity always for us to interact with not only key stakeholders, but people that are working day to day in the industry. But we developed a process that we call Momentum. That's an opportunity for us to come into the destination and spend time. Originally, we went to 6 different districts. We spent time in each district getting about between 8 and 12 key stakeholders in each district with 2 or 3 different sessions. So we're really telling the story that they helped us craft. It's not like we're going back and crafting a story. It was something that the involvement of the Belizean people was what made it so special. Then we took that and we took it out on the road to show them what the results were of their input and what they were bringing to the table. And we were very excited to see that it was something that was very meaningful to them. So we were really telling a very accurate story. As we tell that story, we're reaching out to key markets, and as those markets expand, we're doing particular levels of focus on each of those markets to make sure that we're elevating awareness first and foremost, but we're driving consideration so people will actually consider Belize. And then as they're going through their travel shopping process, we're making sure that we're in front of them as often as we possibly can with messages that are relevant to what they're looking for.
How does this technology assist with our tour operating companies and our tour guides as is? Because that is one of the things that drive jobs in Belize as well.
Yeah, well, we're trying to make sure that all of the tools are being created are tools that are being able to be applied in a very relevant way to each of the constituents in Belize. So it's not something that we're only concerned about the audience itself and who's going to be traveling to Belize. And I think you'll find that the BTB spent a lot of time last week at the meeting talking about how people could take advantage of all the technology and how they can use a lot of this. I think that's very important. We work with some destinations that believe it's all about only the audience. In Belize, I think everybody understands that it's clearly about the Belizeans. We're creating a new program. We created a campaign called Grab Life. And that campaign has been very well received in each of the regions. Now we're taking that to another element, and we're creating what's called the Grab Life Coach. And those are the Belizean people. Those are the tour operators. Those are the people that are actually taking that to the audience themselves, and we're giving them an opportunity to be part of the overall campaign.
It's interesting because all the talk in the tech world has to do with artificial intelligence, has to do with virtual reality and all of these other things. And to see us incorporating these technological developments into something like tourism, you know, a few years ago we wouldn't have been thinking along these lines. So it's in a sense quite a novel thing, correct?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you, I think Belize should be very proud of Belize. And what I mean by that is, I think Belize, understanding what a special destination Belize is, has to start from the inside. And obviously, you've seen the numbers, you've seen the growth and what's happening. That's happening because we are on the cutting edge. You know, when you go and you're looking at markets like New York and Atlanta and Houston, and you're looking at new airlines being introduced, those are all cutting edge strategies that are being used to make sure we're taking full advantage of not only the markets and the audiences and the stories we have to tell, but the technology we have to use. Social media is a very important platform for Belize. AI is going to be more and more important as we move forward. We're creating new things with the website now using technology to develop itinerary builders. So yes, I think the observation is correct that we are, Belize should be very proud of what's taking place in the world and how the world is looking at Belize. I happened to be in a meeting in Barbados a few months ago, and somebody said to me, they didn't know that we work with Belize. And they said, what is going on in Belize? You know, that's all we hear about is Belize, Belize, Belize. And I kind of just smiled on the side, you know, because they didn't know that we all work together. But yes, Belize is hot right now in the travel market.
I'm glad that you've mentioned earlier momentum, because while we're hot right now, as you've described it, how do we maintain this particular momentum moving forward? How do we grow it to attract more persons and to continue to build on our existing product?
Yeah, well, you know, there was a presentation the other day at Boom Conference about development and new products. I think if you go to the airport and you see what's taking place at the airport, those are all really important things to keep up with the momentum. It's not something where, you know, we can just keep inviting people without something for them to do. I think the accommodations and what's taking place in accommodations, what's taking place in airlift is critical. You know, the efforts that have taken place in the last 2 or 3 years to drive more airlift to the destination, if that didn't take place, none of the efforts that we're doing now would be successful.
Yeah.
So, you know, those people that were really fighting that battle to get more airlift and what's taking place at the airport and what's taking place throughout the destination, I think is very critically important.
VR is just one step closer to getting into that brand of tech. I know you're talking about AI and so forth, but what can we see in the pipelines before the end of the year from the Zimmerman Agency when it comes to tourism in Belize?
Well, I think you'll see what we're doing individually in markets. So what we'll be doing in New York to put a greater focus on the marketplace. What we're doing in markets like Atlanta, which I mentioned earlier. We've developed a new partnership with the Atlanta United, which is probably the most popular football team for soccer in the U.S. today. So those partnerships will be in place. We're going to be using the technology. We're going to continue to be using a very targeted approach to what we're doing. On Thursday, we introduced a new tool for planning, where we're doing predictive modeling using AI to help us better understand the audience and do a better job of targeting the audience using tools, using data, and then applying tools like AI to make that more effective. You're also going to see a continuance of the Grab Life campaign. You know, the Grab Life campaign, I think it's the right time and the right place for that campaign, and you're going to see more of it. But you'll see the evolution of what we'll be calling on island, within destination rather, we'll be really referencing the Grab Life Coach to get more people involved in the overall campaign.
My final question for you, Curtis. I'd like your perspective on Belize's rebound and recovery from the COVID pandemic in terms of tourism and how far we've come since the dreaded days of 2020.
Well, I'm gonna make a pretty bold statement. I don't know any destination, and we do a lot of work in a lot of destinations. I don't know any destination that has recovered as strongly as Belize has from where we started.
Interesting.
And that takes a lot to do that. You know, if you see, I mean, you see the numbers now, but it took a lot of effort. And clearly that's not just from the agency, that's the BTB effort that's doing that and driving those things. It's Belizeans that are working on development projects. It's working to make sure things are approved so that you are experiencing the type of growth you are in tourism right now. So, you know, that starting point, that was a pretty dire time. It's never lost on me that we were actually hired 3 weeks before the pandemic hit. That was a pretty tough time.
Yeah.
And we were trying to make do without a lot of funds, without a lot of resources. And as we began to come out of it, it was a very unified effort, clearly, from a lot of people to make that work. There's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that went into this from the Belize standpoint to make sure that this took place. And I think as you look at a lot of destinations, what the BTB said was, let's make sure people are thinking about us when they do begin to think about travel again.
Yeah.
But think about how smart that is. Let's not wait until people start traveling. Let's make sure people are thinking about us when they can't travel.
Yeah.
Then when they're ready, that pent-up demand, people are already curious about Belize. Mm-hmm. So I think it's extraordinary, the recovery, but I don't know any destination that has recovered as well.
How can we find out more information on the Zimmerman Agency and your continuous innovation?
Well, I think in terms of our efforts for what's taking place in Belize, last week was a great step forward. I think this Boom initiative is fantastic. If people were not able to attend, and the attendance was tremendous. I don't think there was a seat open in the entire venue. But I think if that's something people want to know more, I think making sure that you're connecting with the BTB so you can see what that presentation entailed and what was there is important. We do try to spend a lot of time. Our PR people are reaching out to accommodations and to partners almost every day to try to get them involved. So we have a pretty extensive fam trip taking place in the destination now, but that's something we reach out to partners all the time to make sure that they can participate and realize the benefits of that participation. So, we're not shy. I don't think the BTB wants us to be shy, and we tend to spend a lot of time in the destination because we want to make sure we're reaching as many people to get them as involved as we possibly can.
Wonderful. Curtis, thank you so much for zooming by this morning to give us some more details on the redefined travel landscape that has brought to us by the Zimmerman Agency. Thank you so much, and we look forward to more innovation in the coming year.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
All right. We are going to take another quick break, and when we come back, it's Miss Universe Belize. We have Miss Halima Hoy already in studio, ready and set to go. Don't go away. We'll be right back.